Human space had been quiet for many years. Too quiet. The galaxy believed humans were finished. Their colonies were small, their trade weak, and their fleets old, very old. Most alien races had moved far ahead in technology. Faster ships, cleaner weapons, smarter machines. Compared to them, human warships looked like relics from a forgotten age. And that is why the Carrion Empire chose to attack. The Carrions were one of the strongest alien powers in the outer sectors. Tall, sharp-featured beings with silver skin and glowing eyes, they valued strength above all else. When their scouts reported human border worlds with little defense, the decision was easy. Conquest. The Carrion High Command sent a massive invasion force toward human space. Hundreds of sleek warships moved through hyperspace, their hulls shining like polished blades. Their weapons could burn planets. Their shields could block suns. To them, this was not a war. It was a cleanup. On the human side, warning alarms echoed through command stations. Officers watched holographic maps as red symbols spread across their borders. Admiral Jonas Hale stood silently at the center of the room. He was old, even by human standards. His hair was gray, his face marked with deep lines, but his eyes were sharp and calm. The Carrions crossed the line. An officer said, "They will reach the Arden system in 2 days." The Arden system was important. It held shipyards, fuel depots, and millions of civilians. Losing it would break human space. "We cannot win with the modern fleet alone," another officer said quietly. "We are outnumbered, outgunned." The room was heavy with fear. Everyone knew it. Admiral Hale slowly turned. "Then we will not fight them with the modern fleet." The officers looked at him, confused. "What do you mean, sir?" someone asked. Hale paused, then spoke words that had not been spoken in decades. "Activate the reserve fleets." Silence filled the room. One officer finally spoke. "Sir, those ships are obsolete, decommissioned. Some are over 100 years old." Hale nodded. "I know. They lack modern shields. Their systems are inefficient. Against carrying weapons, they were built to survive." Hale interrupted. Not to look impressive, across human space, sealed hangars began to open. Ancient warships, long hidden and forgotten, slowly came to life. Their hulls were thick and scarred, built with heavy armor instead of elegant curves. Their engines roared like beasts waking from sleep. These ships were not fast. They were not beautiful. They were stubborn, old battleships, heavy cruisers, gun platforms designed in an age when humans fought enemies stronger than themselves. The crews were volunteers, veterans, engineers, pilots, who had trained on simulators of ships older than their grandparents. They knew the risks. They also knew the history. In the Arden system, the Carrion fleet arrived exactly as predicted. Their ships spread out in perfect formation, confident and controlled. Carrion commanders observed the system and laughed. "This is human territory?" One said. "I expected more." Sensors detected movement near the planet. Multiple contacts. A Carrion officer reported. Large mass signatures. The Carrion commander smiled. "Their fleet." The hologram flickered as human ships emerged from hyperspace. The smile faded. "These designs," the commander said slowly, "they are old, very old." Human ships filled the space between the Carrions and the planet. They did not form elegant lines. They formed walls. Thick, layered walls of metal and guns. Some Carrion officers laughed again. "They bring museums to war," one mocked. Then the first shots were fired. Carrion beams struck the lead human ship. Shields failed instantly. The beam cut deep into the hull and stopped. The ship did not explode. Smoke poured from damaged sections, but the vessel kept moving forward. Its massive cannons rotated with slow, heavy purpose. Human guns fired, not elegant energy beams, but dense, brutal projectiles. Rail cannons, kinetic weapons, shells that ignored shields through sheer force. A Carrion cruiser was hit. Its shield shattered. Its hull cracked. The ship broke apart in seconds. The battlefield froze. More human ships fired. Their weapons tore through space like storms. They did not rely on precision. They relied on endurance and overwhelming force. Carrion ships returned fire. But the human vessels refused to die. Even when torn open, they continued advancing. Even when burning, they kept shooting. On the human flagship, Admiral Hale watched quietly. "They think old means weak," he said softly. "They forgot why these ships were built." As explosions lit the dark sky, the galaxy watched the first battle in disbelief, and for the first time in centuries, an alien empire began to question a dangerous assumption that Humans were obsolete. The carrying commanders did not panic at first. They believed this was only a lucky strike. Adjust fire patterns, the lead commander ordered. Target engines. These ships are slow across the battlefield. Carrying warships changed formation. Their advanced weapons focused on disabling human engines, cutting through space with sharp red beams. Several human ships were hit hard. One cruiser lost half its engines. Another was torn open along its side. Fire and debris spilled into the void, but the ships did not retreat. Instead, they moved closer. Human vessels pushed forward like moving fortresses. Even damaged ships placed themselves in front of others, absorbing fire meant for the fleet behind them. On the carrying flagship, confusion began to grow. They should be destroyed, an officer said. Our calculations show catastrophic damage. They are still advancing, another replied. His voice uneasy. The commander narrowed his eyes. How the answer came in silence and explosions. A human battleship drifted close to a group of carrying destroyers. Its shields were gone. Parts of its hull glowed from heat. It should have been dead. Instead, its massive side cannons opened fire at point-blank range. 3 carrying ships vanished in fire. Shock rippled through the alien fleet. These human ships are not retreating, an officer said. They are using themselves as weapons. On the human flagship, alarms rang nonstop. Engineers ran through smoke-filled corridors. Damage reports came in faster than they could be counted. Captain Mirasola stood at her station, gripping the rail as her ship shook. Engineering. Status, she called. Reactor stable. A voice answered. Hull integrity at 60%. We can still fight. Mira looked at the main display. Carrier ships were falling back slightly, trying to create distance. They're afraid, she said quietly. Her first officer glanced at her. Of us? Of what they don't understand. The human fleet pushed harder. Old doctrine came alive. These ships were built for wars where retreat was not an option, where survival depended on standing firm, no matter the cost. Human gunners fired again and again. Each shot was slow, heavy, and devastating. Alien shields failed under repeated impacts. For the first time, the carrier fleet lost formation. Orders overlapped. Commands conflicted. Their advanced systems struggled to predict enemies that did not behave logically. They should be running, one carrier officer said. No sane fleet would fight like this. The commander's voice was tense. Humans have never been sane. On a distant observation station, neutral alien species watched the battle unfold. Data streamed across their screens. These ships are outdated, one observer said. Yet their battle performance exceeds expectations. Another replied. They are using mass and redundancy instead of speed and precision. They are accepting damage to control space. A third added. The conclusion spread. Quietly, humans were fighting a different kind of war. Back in the battle, a carrier strike group attempted a flanking maneuver. Fast ships slipped around the human line, aiming for the planet. Admiral Hale noticed immediately. Deploy the anchor group, he ordered. From the human rear, even older ships emerged. Their designs were crude, their weapons short-ranged, but they positioned themselves directly in the path of the carrion advance. Carrion commanders laughed again. Briefly, then the anchor ships activated gravity weapons. Space twisted. Carrion ships slowed, trapped in invisible wells. Their engines screamed as they fought against forces they had not prepared for. Human ships closed in at close range. Technology mattered less than resolve. The anchor ships did not survive long. One by one, they were destroyed, but they held long enough. The carrion flanking force was erased. On the human flagship, silence followed the reports. Hale closed his eyes for a moment. They knew, he said softly. They all knew. An officer swallowed. Sir, casualties are heavy. Hale nodded. This fleet was never meant to return whole across the battlefield. The carrion commander stared at the destruction around him. His fleet was still powerful, but something had changed. Confidence was gone. These are not obsolete ships, he said slowly. They are war relics. A pause. Prepare a full withdrawal, he ordered. The officers froze. Sir, one asked. We still have superior numbers. Yes, the commander replied. But we no longer have certainty. As the carrion fleet began to pull back, the human ships did not chase them. They simply held their ground. Burning, broken, victorious. The galaxy received the battle reports within hours. Old human ships. Massive losses. unthinkable resistance, and a single terrifying truth began to spread. If this was humanity's past, what did their future look like? The battle at the Arden system ended, but its echo traveled far beyond human space. Across the galaxy, data streams replayed the same impossible images. Old human ships absorbing fire that should have destroyed them. Alien fleets breaking formation. A powerful empire choosing to withdraw. In neutral systems. Traders stopped mid-journey to watch the recordings. In military academies, instructors paused lessons to study every second. What you are seeing, one analyst said quietly, is not advanced technology, it is survival design. Another replied. In the carrying capital. Silence filled the High Council chamber. Tall figures stood around a floating display showing damaged ships and lost formations. This should not have happened, one counselor said. Our intelligence was clear. Another replied, human fleets are outdated. The Supreme Commander stared at the image of a burning carrying cruiser. Outdated does not mean harmless, he said. A younger officer stepped forward. They sacrificed ships without hesitation. Their commanders did not retreat even when logic demanded it. The Supreme Commander turned slowly. Because their logic is different. A new order was issued that day. All carrion forces were to avoid direct engagement with heavy human vessels. Until further study, fear entered carrion strategy. On the human side, there was no celebration. The Arden system was safe, but at a terrible cost. Shipyards burned. Wreckage filled orbit. Many of the old ships would never move again. Rescue crews worked in silence, pulling survivors from broken hulls. Med bays overflowed. Engineers patched what they could with limited resources. Captain Mira Solis walked through her damaged ship. The walls were scorched. Lights flickered. The air smelled of metal and smoke. Her first officer joined her. We held them, he said. Yes, she replied, but they were testing us. On the flagship, Admiral Hale studied long-range reports. His face showed no relief. The galaxy is watching now, he said. That is dangerous, and A looked up. Sir, shall we hide the reserve fleets again? Hale shook his head. It is too late for hiding. Far away, other alien powers took notice. The Valari Union, known for diplomacy, called emergency meetings. The Wreath Dominion began fortifying borders. Pirate clans avoided human trade routes for the first time in years. One truth became clear. Humanity had reminded the galaxy that it still knew how to fight. In a neutral station near the galactic core, representatives from many species gathered. They spoke in low voices, watching the same battle footage. If humans can do this with old ships. One said, what are they building now? Another replied, or what else are they hiding? Back in human space, new orders were sent. Modern fleets began moving, not to attack, but to stand beside the old ships still holding the line. New vessels looked small and elegant next to the ancient giants. The contrast was clear. Humans were not choosing between old and new. They were combining them. At the edge of human territory, sensors detected movement. Not carrying ships. Something else. Long-range signals. Unknown signatures. Silent probes watching from a distance. Admiral Hale noticed immediately. They are studying us, he said. Everyone is. Captain Solis joined the command channel. Sir, do you think the carrions will return? Hale's voice was calm. Not yet, but others will come, he added. Deep within a hidden shipyard, long sealed doors began to open. Lights flickered on for the first time in decades. Designs older than the reserve fleet waited in silence. Not ships meant to fight, ships meant to end wars. Hale stood alone, watching the schematics appear. The galaxy believes we showed our past, he said softly. They do not realize, he continued. We only showed them what we were willing to lose, beyond human space. The galaxy adjusted its maps. Borders were redrawn, assumptions rewritten, and somewhere in the darkness, new alliances and new threats began to form, because one thing was now certain. Humanity was no longer invisible, and the next time the galaxy tested them, the response would not be made of relics alone. The galaxy did not wait long to react. After the battle, messages flooded human space. Some were polite, some were careful, others were filled with fear hidden behind kind words. The Valari Union requested talks. The Wreath Dominion asked for shared borders. Even smaller powers sent greetings that sounded like respect, but felt like caution. Humans answered slowly. They had learned long ago that fast words could be more dangerous than silence. On Earth, the World Council gathered. Screens showed faces from different colonies and fleets. The room was tense. We showed strength. one delegate said. Now they are afraid. Fear can turn into unity, another replied. Against us. Admiral Hale stood before them. They already united once, he said, and they lost their certainty. The council listened. Our mistake, Hale continued, would be to pretend we want peace while preparing only for war. We must prepare for both. In the outer systems, human fleets changed positions. Old ships were pulled back for repair where possible. New ships took their place, standing quietly, visibly. The message was clear. Humans were not hiding anymore. Captain Mira Solis watched alien traffic pass near her patrol zone. For the first time, ships slowed when they detected human signals. Some even altered course. They see us differently now, her first officer said. Yes, she replied. They see risk. Meanwhile, inside Carrion space, unrest spread. The High Council argued openly. Some demanded revenge. Others warned against another disaster. They bled us with relics, one counselor said. What happens if they use real weapons? The Supreme Commander did not answer immediately. Our mistake, he finally said, was assuming humans evolved like us. He turned to a display showing human history. They did not replace old ideas. He continued. They stacked them. Layer upon layer, a decision was made. Carrion fleets would strengthen borders. No more advances. No more testing. For the first time in centuries, the Carrion Empire chose defense. In a distant system, something ancient drifted silently. A human shipyard long hidden from normal space began limited activity. Power flowed into massive frames still under construction. Not sleek. Not elegant. Purpose-built. Admiral Hale arrived in person. He walked the platform, looking at ships that dwarfed even the old battleships. An engineer approached him. Sir, if we activate these, the galaxy will panic. Hale nodded. That is why we won't. Not yet. Elsewhere, alliances began forming. Some alien races reached out to humans quietly, offering information. Others pulled away, strengthening their own fleets. The balance of power shifted. Slowly but clearly, back on Mira's ship, a strange signal appeared on sensors. Unknown transmission. An officer reported. Encoded. Non-hostile. Mira studied it. Origin? Multiple sources, he said. Different species. The message was simple. Observation, interest, caution. The galaxy was no longer asking if humans were weak. They were asking how strong they truly were. Admiral Hale reviewed the same report later. His expression did not change. They are measuring shadows, he said. Not the shape. An aide asked quietly, Sir, how far are we willing to go? Hale looked at the stars beyond the viewport. As far as necessary, he said, but never further. In the dark spaces between empires, fleets moved. Plans were drawn. Old grudges resurfaced. The galaxy had entered a new phase, not open war. Not peace, but something far more unstable, and humanity stood at its center, silent, watching, waiting, because the next move would decide everything. The warning did not come from the Carrion Empire. It came from the dark at the edge of known space. A research station vanished. No distress call, no wreckage, just silence where life had been moments before. At first, the galaxy ignored it. Stations failed sometimes. Accidents happened. Then another one disappeared. Then a patrol fleet. Data finally reached human space when a damaged probe drifted across the border. Its memory core was cracked, but enough remained. Admiral Hale watched the recovered footage in silence. Ships were torn apart without explosions. Hulls folded like paper. Energy readings spiked and vanished in seconds. This is not Carrion, an analyst said. Their weapons do not behave like this. Mira Solis was present via live channel. It looks like gravity distortion, she said slowly. On a massive scale, the room grew quiet. Gravity weapons at that level were theoretical, dangerous, unstable. And forbidden by most galactic treaties. Soon alien messages arrived again. But this time, there was fear without politeness. The Valari Union asked for joint defense. The Wreath Dominion requested shared intelligence. Even the Carrion sent a short transmission, one line. This threat is not human. For the first time, the galaxy agreed on something. Something was coming. In deep space, the threat moved without sound. Massive structures drifted like living shadows. They did not communicate. They did not negotiate. They consumed. Civilizations that relied on speed were crushed. Shields failed. Precision weapons missed targets that bent space itself. Entire fleets were erased. Back on Earth, the World Council gathered again. Panic filled the room. Our fleets cannot stop this, one delegate said. Admiral Hale stood calmly. Modern fleets cannot. Eyes turned toward him. The reserve fleets were not built for enemies like the Carrions. Hale continued. They were built for this. Silence followed. You knew? Someone asked. Hale shook his head. We feared. Human history was full of encounters with forces stronger than themselves. Long ago, they learned one lesson well. Survive first. Adapt second. When last orders went out across human space. Not to the modern fleets. To the oldest vaults. Ships older than the reserve fleets awakened. Designs never shared. Systems that did not rely on delicate balance. Ships that functioned even when reality itself broke. Captain Mira Solis was reassigned. Her ship docked with one of the ancient carriers. She felt small walking its halls. The walls were thick, the air heavy. These ships don't fight fast, an engineer told her. They fight forever. The galaxy watched as human fleets moved toward the dark zones. Not rushing, not chasing. Waiting. The first encounter was brutal. The unknown entities attacked without warning. Space twisted. Human ships lost sensors, lost power, lost direction. But they did not break. Old systems came online. Manual controls, physical overrides. Crews adapted as machines failed. Human weapons fired not to destroy, but to anchor space. Massive fields stabilized reality long enough for others to act, slowly, painfully. Humans held the line. Alien observers were stunned. They are not fighting the enemy, one analyst said. They are fighting the environment. The entities reacted. They turned their full attention toward the human fleets. For the first time, the threat acknowledged resistance. Casualties mounted. Ships were lost. Crews sacrificed themselves to keep space stable for seconds longer. Admiral Hale watched the reports. They're learning, an aide said. So are we? Hale nodded. That is why we cannot lose. The Carrion Empire sent reinforcements. Not out of kindness, out of fear. For the first time in galactic history, human and carrion ships fought side by side. Their differences vanished under shared survival. And still, the threat pushed forward. Then the signal came from the hidden shipyard. The final systems were ready. Hale closed his eyes for a moment. Prepare activation, he said. Mira felt it before she saw it. Space grew heavy, calm. Something vast awakened behind the human lines. Alien sensors struggled to describe it. It's not a fleet, someone whispered. It's a structure. The unknown entities paused. For the first time since they appeared, they hesitated. The galaxy held its breath, because whatever humanity was about to reveal would decide if anyone survived at all. The structure did not move like a ship. It unfolded. Layers of metal and energy separated slowly, as if space itself was opening. It was larger than any fleet, larger than stations, larger than cities. Alien sensors failed to measure it correctly. This is impossible, one Velari scientist whispered. It is anchoring reality. Human engineers watched their screens in silence. This was not a weapon built to destroy. It was built to endure. Admiral Hale's voice carried across all channels. Activate the stabilizers. Across the structure, massive cores came online. Invisible fields spread outward, combing the twisted space around the battlefield. Gravity waves weakened. Time distortion slowed. The unknown entities reacted immediately. They surged forward, bending space harder, trying to crush the structure before it fully activated. Human ships moved to intercept. Old fleets, reserve fleets, modern fleets. Everything humanity had stood together. Mira Solis' ship shook violently as the entities struck. Systems failed. Lights went out. Manual control. She shouted. Her crew responded instantly. Hands moved to levers and switches designed centuries ago. The ship obeyed. Human vessels absorbed the pressure. Hulls cracked. Reactors overheated. But they held. The structure completed its activation. Space stabilized. For the first time, the entities were fully visible. They were not machines. They were not alive in any normal sense. They were vast, shifting forms of dark matter and energy, feeding on instability itself. They had moved from broken region to broken region, consuming civilizations that weakened reality. Now, reality pushed back. Human weapons fired again. This time, they did not miss, anchored in stable space. The entities could no longer bend attacks away. Kinetic rounds struck true. Energy weapons burned deep. The entities screamed, not with sound, but with distortion that rattled minds. Alien fleets joined the assault. Carrion ships fired in disciplined lines. Velari support vessels reinforced stabilizer fields. The galaxy fought as one. Still, the entities adapted. They focused their attacks on the structure. Cracks formed, energy levels dropped, stability failing. An engineer reported. Mira saw it on her display. If the structure fell, space would collapse again. Admiral Hale made a decision. Begin Phase 2. He said. Several human ships broke formation. They were not warships. They were cores. Each ship carried part of the structure's heart. Built to detach. Built to burn out. Mira understood. They're sacrificing themselves. Her first officer said. Double quotes yes. She replied, so others can live. The core ships moved into the densest enemy mass. As they did, they overloaded their reactors. Stability fields surged. The entities were trapped. One by one, the core ships vanished in controlled collapses. Space sealed behind them, cutting the entities apart. The battlefield shook. When the light faded, half the entities were gone. The structure flickered. Damaged but standing. Cheers did not come. The cost was too high. Admiral Hale watched the casualty list grow. Names, ships, lives. They knew the price. He said quietly. The remaining entities pulled back, wounded but not destroyed. They're retreating, an aide said. Hale shook his head. They're repositioning. The structure's energy levels dropped further. We cannot survive. Another exchange. An engineer warned. Mira looked at the distant shapes, reforming in the dark. They're preparing something bigger, she said. Hale nodded. So are we. He turned toward a final command console. This was never meant to win, he said, only to hold. The last option remained, a choice humanity had hoped never to use. Across all fleets, a single message appeared. Final authorization pending. Mira felt her chest tighten. Whatever came next would end the war, one way or another. The message spread across every human ship. Final authorization approved. There was no cheering, no speeches, only understanding. Admiral Hale stood alone on the command deck. The stars outside looked calm, almost peaceful. This is the last line, he said quietly. All fleets, hold position. Mira Solis read the command on her console. Her hands did not shake. Crew, she said, her voice steady. You know what to do. Across human space, ancient systems came online. Codes older than any treaty activated. The structure at the center of the battlefield changed. It did not grow brighter. It grew quieter. Energy collapsed inward. Stability fields tightened, pulling reality together like a closing fist. The unknown entities sensed it immediately. They rushed forward, twisting space in panic. But there was nowhere to go. Human ships did not chase. They anchored. The structure reached critical state. This will seal the breach forever, an engineer said softly. But the structure will be lost. Hale nodded. That was always the plan. He opened a channel to all fleets, human and alien alike. Fall back, he ordered. Now, Mira's ship turned away, engines straining as space folded behind her. She watched the structure one last time. It stood alone. The entities struck it with everything they had. The structure responded by collapsing itself, not exploding. Closing. Space healed. The entities were caught inside a shrinking pocket of stable reality. Cut off from the chaos they fed on. They faded, not destroyed, but erased from influence. The light vanished. Silence returned. Sensors slowly came back online. The battlefield was empty. The structure was gone. Hours later, confirmation arrived. No distortion, no anomalies, no entities. The threat was over. Across the galaxy, ships drifted in stunned silence. Humans had not conquered. They had ended the war by removing the battlefield itself. In the days that followed, the galaxy changed. Carrying war doctrine was rewritten. Valari treaties were amended. Entire civilizations reconsidered what power truly meant. Human space remained quiet. There were no parades. The lost ships were honored in silence. Captain Mira Solis stood at a memorial screen, reading names. They will remember us, her first officer said. Yes, she replied, but not as monsters. Admiral Hale submitted his final report. It was short. Humanity did not win through strength alone. We won by choosing survival for all. He retired that same day. Years passed. Trade routes reopened. Borders softened. The galaxy stabilized, and one truth remained unchallenged. Humans did not rule the galaxy. They protected it. Because when the universe itself began to break, humanity was the species that held it together.